Boo! Yes, it's the final week of October, which means we have the World Series, college football, the NFL, NHL action, the NBA, UFC, soccer, and let's not forget about that college basketball right around the corner. Since we're almost obliged to have a Halloween commercial, let's make it a scary good one. Until midnight on October 31st, no costume is required to get a 31% discount on one all-access package of your choice at both Wager Talk and Sports Memo using coupon code BOO31 at checkout. This coupon will save you over $12 on a one-day all-access that includes any 5% plays. And it'll also save you over $18 off a 3-day all-access. Or why not go big and save over $90 off a 30-day all-access? Or perhaps take over business for the next year by saving over $600 with a 12-month all-access package, coming out to just $3.77 per day for the next 365 days. Coupon code BOO31 expires at midnight on Halloween. But remember to use it wisely, as this coupon can only be used once at Wager Talk and once at Sports Memo. From my friend and I, happy Halloween.
Hey guys, welcome in. A very happy Friday to you here. Final Friday of October 2022 as we try to come to grips to that. It is week 9 in the college football season, and we've got 3 more games we're going to break down for you here today on the College Football Kickoff Show, powered by WagerTalk.com. As we welcome in the Friday crew here today. It is the Bryans. That's right, brothers from different mothers. Bryan Leonard, Brian Powered in the house. Tony Finn also here for you guys here today. I like these 3 games too. Can't wait to hear what you guys got to say about all 3 of them. Rivalries, division rivalries of sorts. Bryan Leonard, my man, continuing to dominate cash and tickets left and right for your clients. Been a hell of a start to the NHL season, NBA season, college football, you name it, my man. What do you got lined up already at WagerTalk.com for us this weekend?
Yeah, off a couple of back-to-back sweeps. I think 15-3 overall. Yeah, it's going really well. Number 1 in the NBA right now, number 2 in hockey, and I have 5% up for college football for Saturday. I've got my play up for the baseball series, if you didn't catch that on a video. And I also have my top NBA and top hockey play up for today.
It's the way to do it, guys. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Over on Bryan Leonard's page there at WagerTalk.com. Brian Power in the house in his comfortable Friday spot, profitable Friday spot here on the show. What happened? What'd you mess? You screwed something up, didn't you, Brian? Did you bet on Rice? You bet on Rice, didn't you? No. All right, good. So then tell us what you got locked and loaded, man.
I was just soaking in the accolades there, Joe. Thank you very much. We are feeling pretty good here heading into the weekend. Off a 3-0 Thursday sweep. Had the first half under last night, Bucks and Ravens, and had a couple good ones in college football, Southern Miss and Virginia Tech. I think those should have been a little bit easier. They were getting me a little bit worried down the stretch, but they got it done. So it's a 3-0 Thursday. 55-27 all sports run last 19 days. Number 1 in college football for the month. We'll be breaking down some good games today. One of them is on my card. 5% play also loaded for tomorrow, college football. 5% NFL loaded for Sunday. And my first 5% NBA pick of the season tonight. So we're doing good. And, on top of all the winning, I just had some leftover tacos before I came in. So
boom,
feeling great.
Yep. Don't know how I feel about that menu, but that's okay. We're here. It is, after all, about a little after 3 o'clock on the East Coast. And, gentlemen, as always, it's going to be a very profitable, and I mean very profitable weekend. I know that. Tony Finn knows that as he joins us here today. Finn, NBA, NHL, NFL, I know Major League Baseball. You got your finger on the pulse here of of course, the World Series starting tonight. You got a whole lot going on at WagerTalk.com. Break it down for us, man.
You could not have been more accurate when you said that, it's going to be profitable weekends. It's going to be profitable for us or profitable for the books. So let's try to keep it on this side of the field. I have NBA, a triple header up tonight. Last night was decent in the NBA. I didn't do real well on my props, but the sides were good, 3-0, or 2-0, excuse me. And we had a 5% winner with the Ravens. I don't have any 5%ers for the weekend. However, I do have a dead presidents report for tonight's baseball game and the series. This World Series I like a lot. There's certain variables and certain matchups I think that give a significant edge to one dugout. So visit Tony Finn only at Wager Talk at my homepage and look for the secret code in there, and it tells you everything. You don't even have to buy anything. Just read.
Oh, I love secret codes. That's great. Tony Finn, can I take a guess as to what the code? Never mind. All right, guys, gentlemen, let us kick it off here the right ways. We've got game number 1 up and locked and loaded, and that is going to be Oklahoma taking on Iowa State. A rivalry that, well, I mean, when you go, 3-31-1 straight up back to the 80s, this hasn't been much of a rivalry. OU is dominated, but this ain't your typical OU Sooners team here, Bryan Leonard. 56.5, basically a pick-em price here. How are you looking at this game, Bryan Leonard? What tickles your fancy here?
Yeah, this is a real interesting game when you take a look at both these teams, both historically and this year. You take a look at the Sooners' defense against the rush. The last 4 games, they've allowed 4.7, 5.9, 8.8, and 5.6 yards per carry. Now, Iowa State's not a team that runs the ball very well, but they should have some success against this Oklahoma defense. I went back and I looked. Oklahoma, this year, they are minus 13 in first downs on the season. Last year, they were only plus 16. The prior 5 seasons, Oklahoma was a combined 294 first downs better than the opposition. That tells you the drop-off of this offense, going down to plus 16 last year, minus 13 this year. This isn't your father's, your brother's even, Oklahoma offense. Iowa State has 3 wins on the season. They beat Southeast Missouri State, Ohio U, and their crosstown rival Iowa. Only 2 opponents all season have scored more than 14 points against the Cyclones, so they're a little bit better what their record shows. Despite losing 4 straight games, those 4 losses came by margins of 3, 1, 3, and 7. I prefer the Iowa State side. I also prefer this game to go under the total. Probably going to make a play on Oklahoma team total under and cover both of that for myself.
Ooh, gotta like that. All right, well invested here in this Big 12 matchup. Brian Power, what do you think here? Certainly won't be a defensive battle, or will it be a defensive battle, interestingly enough?
Well, just going back to the history, Joe, you brought it up. Let's go back even further. Last 87 times these teams have played, Iowa State has won 7. That is not very good. But as Bryan Leonard so eloquently put it, I was actually going to make that exact same statement, that this is not your father's or even older brother's Oklahoma team. The offense is better. Let's talk about the Oklahoma offense now that Dylan Gabriel's back after that rough stretch they had. But Iowa State's defense, Brian mentioned it, 6th nationally in points allowed, top 10 total defense, just 290 yards per game. So they've got the clear edge on that side of the ball. I don't think anyone would dispute who the better defensive team is heading into this matchup. But I really like the other 2 games that we're going to talk about today. And my only call here is actually to stay away. You've got 2 underperforming teams, both off buys. This is just the 2nd time Oklahoma is not a favorite of 5 or more this season. Brian mentioned Iowa State 0-4 its last 4 games, but those 4 losses have been by a total of 14 points, last 3, all by a field goal or less. A trend I've got for you, if you're so inclined, this actually points to OU. Under Matt Campbell, Iowa State just 5-15 straight up in games where the spread is 3.5 or less either way. Since 2016, only 1 coach in all of college football with a minimum of 10 such games has a worse winning percentage. That would be Cliff Kingsbury, who was 1-9. So at least Matt Campbell knows that he may have a job in the NFL waiting for him if all else fails. But I'm staying away from this one, Joe. I don't like this game at all.
All right, he is staying away from OU and Iowa State. Not you, Tony Finn. I got a
No.
feeling that you are going to pick a side in this one. Tell us which one it might be there, Tony.
Well, let's do this. I think that both Brian and my other Brian, are quite accurate. On everything they've said on the surface is accurate. There's some underlying peripherals in this game and some recent trends and recent discoveries that make this game completely different than that. It is my best bet today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say the perception of these two programs that they're on some level playing field is absurd. It's ridiculous. And these guys both outlined that as well over the years. And I don't want to go back too far because going back too far would be it's nice conversation is frivolous when it comes to what happens tomorrow. I like the side in this play, and we'll talk about that more in the best bets if that's okay with you, Joe.
All right, not a problem at all. That means we're going to head to another game here, and game number 2 that we're going to talk about. Talk about the other Oklahoma team, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, taking on K-State, who's coming off unfortunately, a loss off a bye week there for Coach Kleiman there against TCU. Oklahoma State handled business as a dog at home against Texas. Man, oh man, what a game this is going to be. So, Bryan Leonard, tell us, how do you look at the Oklahoma State Cowboys being a dog again here on the road?
Yeah, really interesting game here. As you have the Kansas State quarterback situation is what you really have to worry about. Looks like it's a game-time decision for the Kansas State starter. Looks like the backup is available once again this week. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm not making a move on this game until I know who's going to be quarterbacking for Kansas State. But doing a little bit more research on the Cowboys. Now, they've won 3 straight. Their only loss was by 3 points at TCU, who has crushed everybody, including breaking my heart against in the last time I played against them and lost that game. So it's a situation for me that despite the 6-1 record for the Cowboys, they've only outgained the opposition by 0.22 yards per play. Kansas State, on the other hand, who hasn't gotten nearly the same reception, are up 0.98 yards per play. So that's like 3/4 of a yard better per play for Kansas State on the season. Kansas State defense against the pass has been terrific. They've only allowed 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I think they're going to have a real strong, solid defensive day against Oklahoma State. I'm looking at this one of 2 ways. Now, obviously, if the starter for Kansas State is coming back and he will play, I'm sure the line's going to go up a little bit. But if he does play, I'm looking at Kansas State at 3 or less. And if he doesn't play, I'm looking at the under in this game because I don't think Oklahoma State can move the ball through the air against Kansas State, and the under's the way to go. So either way, I'm looking at Kansas State or the under, and it's very similar to the last game we talked about. Maybe I'll just play Oklahoma State team total under and get it that way.
Yeah, Adrian Martinez still waiting to hear if the knee is going to go. If it's not a go, Will Howard did a pretty good job as a backup coming into that TCU game there, Brian Power, but unfortunately he ended up getting hurt. Then when he came back in, he wasn't the same quarterback. He does appear to be healthy here and ready to go for this game. But how do you look at this one between K-State and Oklahoma State?
Well, first off, just an aside, I don't know what TCU and the New York Jets do during the week, if they engage in some sort of voodoo in practice. But all these teams do is have the other team's quarterback get hurt. It's insane. If I was West Virginia's quarterback, I'd take a life insurance policy out on myself this week. It's unbelievable. Let's talk about this game here, Oklahoma State and Kansas State in the Little Apple. I am not one, Joe, to complain about officiating ever. Maybe I have once or twice, but it's rare. But count me among those who think that maybe the referees were eating a little well in Stillwater last weekend, because what in the world was going on with the penalty yardage discrepancy in Oklahoma State, Texas? Texas called for 14 penalties, 119 yards. Oklahoma State was not flagged once. You're telling me they didn't do one they didn't hold once. They didn't do anything. That seems a little peculiar.
Well-coached team. Just gonna say
well, okay, there we go.
He's a man.
Must be. He must be. He is 40. So am I guess. I don't know. My kids don't listen to me. I don't know. I'll have to call up Coach Gundy for advice. Anyway, Quinn Ewers, he's not the Texas quarterback. He's not 40. He threw 3 interceptions in the second half last week. That didn't help the Longhorns' cause. But Oklahoma State, 5th week in a row that they're playing a conference rival. The previous 4 have all been one-score games deep into the fourth quarter. That includes the only loss in overtime at TCU. Is it fair to question what's left in the tank? Maybe. Kansas State, Joe, I think you mentioned it at the outset. They had their bye 2 weeks ago. Then, of course, they host TCU last week. Or, pardon me, they were on the road, and they were up 28-10. Yep. And they get down to the third-string quarterback who throws an interception on his only pass attempt. Yes, Martinez is a game-time decision, but Will Howard moved the ball well. And he moved the ball well when he faced Oklahoma State 2 years ago. That game was decided on a late fumble. Deuce Vaughn, the Kansas State running back, he's going to have success in this game. Bryan Leonard mentioned the Wildcats defense, strong in the secondary. I think they can slow Spencer Sanders down, easy for you to say. And Mike Gundy, yes, okay. A fine coach. He is 40. Obviously, his team doesn't commit penalties. He's excelled in games with tight spreads like this, opposite of Matt Campbell, who we talked about earlier. I think the Cowboys are living on borrowed time. I would play Kansas State now because you're going to get a better number than if Martinez does play. This is on my card. I am laying the 1.5 with K-State at home.
Okay, taking K-State. Tony, Finn.
Yeah.
Another one of these pick-em type of Big 12 matchups here. Oklahoma State, like the guys had said, Gundy's been money in these kinds of spots. On the road as a dog, getting points usually means an Oklahoma State cover, if not an outright win. What do you think here this week?
Well, I think that first and foremost, if you look at Oklahoma State, Gundy's the best coach in the Big 12. In my orbit, it's not even close. And in fact, Gundy's the type of coach that could morph into an NFL team and do just fine, even though he does stick his foot in his mouth every once in a while, and he's entertaining. I'm so sorry that he cut that. What do they call that haircut? The front, the business
mullet,
in front.
baby, the mullet.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
I was really worried about this team. Cutting the hair off and not having any powers, But look at the schedule. Look at Oklahoma State. Look at what they've done. Look at the points they put up. They've scored under 40 points once this year. That was when they went to Arizona State, and they didn't have to score. It was Arizona State still in turmoil at that time. I think Arizona State's made some. They've elevated themselves to some degree where they're just a Division II team instead of a Division VIII team right now. But that said, this team does enough defensively. If you look at the yards, they look on the surface, they look like a horrible, horrible defensive team, especially against the pass. But the points they're giving up per game, mid-20s, speak to what Gundy and his staff do. If you look at those games, and Bryan was very articulate. He said it. They all played these close games. They play close games, and they win them. Save the TCU game, which – we can go back and talk about a fish game. I'm not going to go there, right? In that game, I thought that I covered in that game because I was getting a field goal, but I thought they should have won it too. Had they won that, then I think this is a different number, and I think the whole Tuesday conversation that we'll have with the rankings, and the NCAA and the January 4 would be different as well. That said, Kansas State is going to play soft in the secondary because they cannot afford to have Sanders continue to go deep. If Sanders connects on one, maybe 2 balls of 20 yards of air or more, then this game's over. It's said, it's done. Their running game will trump whatever Kansas State has done against the run. Kansas State's schedule has been soft comparatively, and I think Bryan made a very good point. You look at what Oklahoma State's done. They get past Kansas State here. They are on their way to being Big 12 champions, and that's what I believe.
Likes it to get it done here. It's going to be interesting, too. I'll let you know here. 6 games for K-State so far this year. They have never trailed going into the half. Just Going to throw that out there for you here in a pick'em game. All right, here we go. Let's take a look. Michigan State taking on Michigan. Going to be an interesting one, too. Or is it going to be blowout written all over it? The market seems to think so. 23 now for Michigan with that total of 55. Safe to say this is Michigan State's, I guess, their bowl game right now. They've got to do something. And all would be forgiven if you beat Michigan, wouldn't they here, Bryan Leonard? Michigan State's, do they have a shot here? Are you giving them a chance against Michigan?
If I was to tell you there's a 23-point underdog on the board this week that has beaten this opponent 4 out of 7 times, including the last 2 years, you would take that bet. Until I told you it was Michigan State. This game all comes down to strength of schedule in my regards. The Spartans have played a tough schedule, 16th toughest schedule this year, while Michigan's at 78th. Michigan hadn't played anybody till last week against Penn State. Well, now they played somebody, and they beat them pretty well. So you can only play who's on your schedule, they always say, and Michigan has played very well against everybody they played. The concern I have for the Spartan team is their pass defense. On the year, they've given up 16 touchdowns with only 2 interceptions and an opponent passer rating of 158.25. This team can get beat through the air like nobody's business. Now, you take a look at Michigan, on the other hand, their pass defense, they've given up 5 touchdowns, they have 4 interceptions, and they're holding the opposing passer rating to 98.67. On the year, Michigan is outgaining the opposition. Now, granted, I did say that they've had an easy schedule by 2.89 yards per play. That is incredible. I don't care who you're playing. Michigan has no look ahead. They've got Rutgers and Nebraska on deck. They've lost to Michigan State for the last 7 years. They've lost the last 2 years. As Mark Lawrence would say in his magazine, this is a triple revenge spot here for the Michigan Wolverines, and that's the only way I would look in this one.
Oh, Michigan, it is. It's kind of hard, Brian, when you look at this. I think it's only happened once in the last 18, 19 years has Michigan actually won this game by more than 3 touchdowns. Are we talking about a second in the last 20? Or is Michigan State where you might be leaning?
Hey, man, what's the worst thing that can happen if you hold your nose? You have a sore nose at the end of the day, right? So I think you know where I'm going with this one. I'm a glutton for punishment and an ugly underdog, and Michigan State's an ugly underdog. Everyone's going to say Michigan, they're out for blood after losing the last 2 years to Michigan State. Well, they had revenge last year, and they still lost. They're not going to lose this game this year. That would, I think, shock all of us. Michigan's the better team. We know that. The stats that Brian ran through, only accentuate what we already know. But it's a lot of points to be laying in a rivalry game. Michigan State, Joe, you said it. They treat this as their bowl game, Super Bowl, whatever analogy you want to make. Michigan's got Ohio State down the road. My numbers, which I know you play close attention to, Joe, have the spread at minus 19. So there's a little bit of value on the underdog right there at above 3 touchdowns. It's, Michigan's motivation, big talking point, like I said, but it's not like Michigan State doesn't take this game seriously. Mel Tucker, people are already questioning his contract, so he can ill afford a blowout loss. And on the defensive side of the ball, Brian was right. Michigan State, quite frankly, stinks at defending the pass, but they're pretty good against the run. And Michigan's going to look to run the ball, obviously, a lot early on. And I know everyone is now running to quote Penn State's rank against the run before they faced Michigan and how awful that turned out. But key pieces back on the defensive side of the ball for Sparty, Henderson and Slade. They've had 2 weeks to prepare. They were a winner for me in East Lansing against Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin's not Michigan, but hold your nose. I think Sparty stays within this number.
Ooh,
It won't be fun. It won't be fun. Maybe go out and watch a different game or go out and do something on Saturday night and just check the score afterwards. It's not going to be a fun 3 hours if you have Sparty, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's not going to be. I will say this, though, Tony, Finn, Michigan, both coming off the bye weeks. It did give Michigan State a chance to get a little healthier. Some of those pieces on the defensive side of the ball be back here. Yeah. They looked the best that they've looked against, Wisconsin before the bye. So over 3 touchdowns. I mean, are you willing to lay it here with Michigan, or is it dog or pass for you?
I would be willing to lay it with Michigan. If I don't do that, I don't lay that kind of wood typically in college football or the NFL. NFL doesn't even approach wood like this typically, unless Joe Montana's quarterback in San Francisco and Jerry Rice is catching passes. Then you might catch that kind of wood. You have to lay if you want to support the Niners. I'm not in this room, Joe. However, if you look at Michigan State, and there's 131 FBS schools, FBS programs, should I say. And if you look at the Spartans, and to the defense of Michigan State, and to the points that Bryan made, that they've played a tougher schedule. This of 131 schools, this defense of Michigan State, first off, Michigan State missing 2 things. First off, the defense, they are 90 or higher or lower, depends on your perspective, right? In areas of second level yards, stuff rate, line yards, the underlying peripherals, the metrics that those metrics in the Big Ten do not work. And Michigan is finally Michigan again, Harbaugh beats Ohio State, and then have you noticed the way he swaggers now and talks to the media? He's the man now. Finally, 7 years later, he finally beats Ohio State. He's the man. I think they win by as many as they want to. The truth is that this Michigan State team doesn't have the key ingredient that makes the head coach, his staff, and their scheme work. They don't have a running back. They don't have a bell cow. So Michigan State can run the ball at will, and against McCarthy may actually have his best game of the year if Harbaugh decides to throw the ball around the field too. I don't know how Michigan State's going to score, and I don't know how they're going to stop Michigan from scoring. So that would put me on the side of Michigan.
Yeah, well, that's all legit questions there. But it is a rivalry game, and, crazy things happen in those types of situations. So now that you've heard about these 3 games, it is time to go around the horn and see if there is a game, either one from these 3 or one off the board that these guys like a little more than the rest here for this Week 9 schedule coming up. So, Bryan Leonard, kick us off here. Tell us what is the one play you like a little bit more than the rest here?
Before I get to my best bet, I do want to say something to Brian Power, who mentioned that if you hold your nose, the worst thing that could happen is you have a sore nose. Well,
you could die.
If you hang around with the people that I do, a lot of them probably forget to open their mouth while they're holding their nose.
Okay, there you go.
That leads to something totally worse than just a sore nose.
Okay,
true.
There you go.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of holding your nose here, I'm going to take Northwestern plus the 11.5 against Iowa. Not often do you get a team getting 11.5 points with a total in the 37.5 range. Back in the olden days, this used to be called a correlated parlay, and you would play Northwestern in the under and be in pretty good shape. They don't let you do that in many places anymore, but that's the way I'm looking at it here. We all know what Iowa has done on the season. They've scored 98 points in 7 games. That's not much more than the 11.5 points they're giving Northwestern in this game. In fact, you go back the last 5 years in this series. Now, I know Northwestern's not as good as they've been in the past. Iowa's not as good this year either. Iowa, in the last 5 years against Northwestern, have scored 17, 20, 20, 10, and 10. And you're going to lay at 11.5 points with this team? I'm not doing it. Give me the ugly dog. The Northwestern Wildcats, I guess it's a cat, not an ugly dog. It's an ugly cat. But I'll take Northwestern plus the 11.5 in a game that's supposed to be very low scoring.
They should have just stayed in Dublin. I mean, they look
Yes.
so good.
Yeah.
Like, you should have just played all your games out there, Northwestern. My goodness. But the dog it is for Bryan Leonard there. Don't forget, guys, his best bets continue to roll. Available over at wagertalk.com. Visit his page today. Brian Power, you're done adding your numbers up, I believe. So lay it out for us here. What's the one play you like a little more than the rest?
Well, you guys keep picking good games here for the show. Last week, I told you that both SMU and LSU are going to be on the card. They were, and they both won. Kansas State is on the card this week. That's my best bet. I laid it out for you. I don't think Oklahoma State's going to benefit from the same kind of penalty discrepancy we saw last week against Texas. I think 5 weeks in a row of tough Big 12 games catches up with them, and I think Kansas State's an underrated football team that can beat Mike Gundy. So there we go. Kansas State is the best bet for the week.
There we go. They ain't messing around. Going with K-State to get it done here against Oklahoma State. Tony Finn, come on, man. Where are you going here for a best bet for us?
Well, first, let me say, when I mentioned the Iowa State versus Oklahoma game being my best bet, and I said that the perception of these two programs not being on a level playing field was ridiculous. I said that right after my two esteemed colleagues said they liked Iowa State, and this was going to be a good, and so there wasn't anything directed to them. It's just talent-wise, this isn't dusk and dawn. It's night and day. Ooh. Now, first-year coach, first-year program. The problem here is that, or should I say, it's an advantage for us, and that is that with the starting quarterback, Gabriel, back healthy, this team figured to struggle early. They figured to progress and be better as the season went along. And I think if you watched any of last week's Dylan Gabriel, then you saw that this team is going to score points now. They're going to score. They have the talent all around him. They're not very good defensively. They haven't been very good defensively in 150 years, right? They've been in a defensive rebuild for a century. Oklahoma has. So here's my question. Riddle me this: If Iowa State had Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, could the complementary pieces that Iowa State has for a horrible regression of Hunter Decker's score 30 points? And my answer, I'd wait to hear the answers, but I would argue with you if you said yes. They can't. Oklahoma's going to score 30 points and will score 30 points in the game. I think they can score 30, 28, 30 by halftime. And if this game is not close, can Hunter Deckers go 29 of 43 pass attempts, throw for 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 accidental interception? This is an offense that has gained 701 total yards of offense in the game. So can they play? Iowa State play with this offense? They can't. Give me Oklahoma in a cakewalk on Saturday in Ames.
He's talking cakewalk here in a game that's lined pretty much a pick'em here. Interesting. Love it. All right. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of value on Oklahoma for Tony Finn here in this one, while Bryan Leonard says, whoo, that game is ugly, but who in the hell is going to lay 11.5 points with Iowa in a game that's got a total of 12.5? I don't blame them. Northwestern laying 11 and taking the 11.5, while Brian Powers says K-State. He's telling you, very undervalued to him, but 1.5 it is. He's going to lay it, take them against Oklahoma State. And make sure you guys take yourselves over to wagertalk.com. While you're there, check out the free live odds page. Never miss a line move in real time, guys. Great information there. And then, of course, you visit Brian Power, Bryan Leonard, and Tony Finn across not just college football, the NFL, NHL, NBA. Guys, it is a beautiful time of year. And the World Series starts tonight. So plenty of opportunities to make it one hell of a profitable weekend. It starts by visiting all 3 of these gentlemen over at wagertalk.com. And that'll do it for this Week 9 edition of the College Football Kickoff Show. We'll be back again next week. Week 10 starting to get good. Bowl games will be here before you know it. Playoffs, all sorts of fun stuff in college football. But until then, best of luck with all your plays tonight, all throughout the weekend. Come back and join us again next week. We'll do it again. Until then, best of luck, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Boo! Yes, it's the final week of October, which means we have the World Series, college football, the NFL, NHL action, the NBA, UFC, soccer, and let's not forget about that college basketball right around the corner. Since we're almost obliged to have a Halloween commercial, let's make it a scary good one. Until midnight on October 31st, no costume is required to get a 31% discount on one all-access package of your choice at both Wager Talk and Sports Memo using coupon code BOO31 at checkout. This coupon will save you over $12 on a one-day all-access that includes any 5% plays. And it'll also save you over $18 off the 3-day all-access. Or why not go big and save over $90 off the 30-day all-access? Or perhaps take over business for the next year by saving over $600 with the 12-month all-access package, coming out to just $3.77 per day for the next 365 days. Coupon code BOO31 expires at midnight on Halloween. But remember to use it wisely, as this coupon can only be used once at Wager Talk and once at Sports Memo. From my friend and I, happy Halloween.